Chapter 15, Felix's Arrival Home. Felix's expected arrival caused great excitement for all in my German family. The one subject we talked about was Felix. We prepared for him, planned for him, worked for him. Felix had to be comfortable, cherished, he had to be happy. He should know how proud we were of him, how grateful we were to him, how much we loved him. Mama unlocked her linen treasures. Lovingly she spread her wedding sheets over Felix's bed. Her boy had been sleeping for so long in Flanders' muddy trenches. Felix's favorite delicacy was young pork, so I was sent to the farm in Neuburg with an order condemning one sow's newborn littler to an exclusive diet of milk and cream. No expense was too great. Mama bought 4 marks worth of rare hothouse flowers and branches of laurel. We made beautiful wreaths and decorated Felix's room. Above the entrance of our house, we fastened a golden shield with large red letters spelling, "Welcome Warrior." If only it would stop raining. Felix didn't like rain. Mama offered a mass to her saints, praying for just a little ray of sun. I hoped for some miracle which would cover the trees with flowers, fill the air with the gay song of birds, and pave our streets with sunshine. I thought the whole wide world would want to join with us in our happiness. Yet it rained and rained. Our streets were changed into rushing rivers. Muddy lakes formed around the draining sewers. The Danube threatened to flood the lower city, and the gray, dreary sky gave us no hope for sunshine. We knew that Felix would reach Neuburg on the 6th of March. However, we had no idea at what time. We were all eager to greet him at the train, so we trudged in pouring rain, 4 times, to the station. By evening, Felix still had not arrived. Weary, dripping wet, and very disappointed, we stood around the kitchen stove drying our boots and stockings. We heard an automobile stop before our gate. Excited, we pressed our noses against the window. By the light of the lamp post we saw a tall officer, with flowing cape, enter our house, and shortly Felix fell into the arms of his mother. Only a year ago I had told Clara about my little playmate with the fancy suspenders, the short leather pants and bare knees, which were always scratched. And now he stood before us in a magnificent officer's uniform. I had always admired Felix. He was so strong and unafraid. No wall was too steep for him to climb, no haystack too high for him to jump. We children followed him as a leader in our play. Now he had a whole company who obeyed his orders. I imagined him on his galloping charger followed by his death-spreading troops. I couldn't help feeling, though, that he would be terrifying in his merciless courage, for I remembered his cruel pleasures when he was a boy. He could throw cats into the river, smear mustard below a dog's tail, and then laughed at the animal's agony and sneered at the children's pleas of pity. We cried and fought him. Mama punished him, Papa spanked him severely. The law of war, however, had made demigods of cold-blooded men. Their cruelty was called courage. They were honored and glorified for bringing death and ruin in the name of patriotism. Our Felix came back to us in an officer's uniform. His breast was decorated with the Iron Cross. He was our hero, we were all very proud of him. Felix was very quiet on the first evening of his furlough. He didn't even answer our questions about the war. After eating heartily, he stretched himself upon the divan. Unknowingly, he caressed the soft pillow beneath his head. Mama helped him unbutton his uniform. She brought him a jacket which he had worn before he left. Smilingly, he struggled through its sleeves. We burst out laughing because it was much too small. I unlaced his boots and put his old worn slippers on his feet. Felix lay with closed eyes. Now, after his uniform had been taken from him, he was again the boy who had come home to rest after a strenuous play. The deep frown on his high forehead had disappeared. His narrow lips, which he always pressed into a sneering expression, had dropped open. The scanty black mustache below his finely cut nose seemed to be out of place on this childish face. "Where is my brother?" he said slowly. "Is he safe?" "Franz is in Galicia," answered Papa. "He is well, but he tells us nothing about the war." "Franz is so different," Felix sighed. "I am sure he suffers in this hell of a war." The next day, however, Felix was again the young officer who had gained honor through his courage. He followed his proud father to the city hall where he wrote his name in the Golden Book, a privilege reserved for specially honored citizens. He saluted his old schoolmates with dignity. He accepted the greetings of our neighbors with the importance of a Bismarck. After a few days he was very willing to tell about his adventures. I stared at him, awe-stricken, as he stood in the center of the room describing to us the excitement of a battle. At first, he said, the war was a child's play. We came to Belgium and simply marched into their towns. They had no trenches, barbed wire fences, nor an army, he laughed. Some of the peasants threatened us with guns, we shot them before they could even pull the trigger. We were drunk with joy over our victories. The Belgians left everything behind them as they saw us approach. We were the conquerors, he shouted, slapping his chest. One morning, just as the day was breaking, a whole army of Frenchmen crept through the forest. Machine guns were spitting, bombs exploded, the air was heavy with smoke and whistling bullets. The ground around us opened. Men yelled, fell, and became silent. I knew, though, he sneered, our bullets didn't miss one Frenchman, for they were a perfect target. Imagine, they wore red pants and a red strip around their caps. I saw, again, the deep frown between his eyes and the contemptuous smile around his lips. Felix seemed to enjoy telling us gruesome tales about the war. His descriptions were real. Their cruel details made me shudder. Some of these dreadful pictures pursued me in my dreams. I heard, saw, and even felt all the horrors of a battle. Some nights I awoke sweating, shouting and fighting my pillow. Little Clara was wise. She refused to listen to Felix's stories. She either ran out of the room or clasped her hands to her ears as soon as he began to talk. I, however, in spite of my terror, wanted to know. Several of Felix's comrades, most of them soldiers, or lieutenants had come to visit him. He was in the height of his glory, for none of the men had as yet been at the front. Mama prepared coffee and cake. I was allowed to help serve them. The living room was thick with smoke. Felix stood, leaning against the piano. His friends gathered around the table, gazed at him with admiration. One night, began Felix, fumbling with the medals on his breast, we conquered the city of L, a godforsaken place, all shot to pieces. My tired men looked for a hole in which to sleep. It seemed to be hopeless, for every house was but a pile of ruins. Suddenly, he said, with a smooth grin, we found a building which, a short time ago, must have been large and beautiful. We made for the stairs leading to the cellar. Crawling over debris, we stumbled along a dark hallway. Imagine our surprise, he exclaimed, as we heard soft, monotonous voices. It was pitch dark. Tense and ready for an attack, we raised our guns. I fired into the ceiling, but the soft, monotonous mumbling persisted. I flashed a light. Stop! I shouted, as I saw a mysterious figure move along the wall. Felix, his widespread fingers stretched before him, eyes his listeners. He was enjoying their excited attention. Here we stood, he continued, a body of men, ready to fight, and stared into the frightened face of an old nun. Rigid, hollow-eyed, she clasped a cross in her lifted hand. We couldn't understand what she stammered. One of the soldiers pushed her aside and we rushed toward the mumbling voices. At the end of the passage, he said, rolling his eyes, we found about 50 nuns crouched on their knees. They stared at us terror-stricken. Felix lowered his voice, some were young, some were beautiful, what a find. Suddenly his story came to an end. Mama handed me the coffee pot. Pale, she rushed toward her son. He stood tall and strong in his officer's uniform. The little woman stood trembling before him. There was a wrathful passion in her eyes. She reached high, slapped his face and cried, "Oh, my son, the sacred sisters." The young officer clenched his teeth, opened and closed his huge hands. He threw his shoulders back, but he didn't look at his mother. Frightful silence. Suddenly I felt something hot trickle into my slipper. I had unwittingly lowered the coffee pot. My outcry made Mama turn toward me. As she saw me waiting in a large black puddle, she threw her hands into the air, pushed me aside and ordered me to get a cloth. As I re-entered the room, I found Mama nervously kneeling on the floor trying to save the rug. The men twisted uneasily on their chairs. Felix rubbed his chin. Blushing, he knocked a cigarette from his pack. He smiled, walked toward his mother, and stooping over her he whispered, "I'm sorry." Mama kissed him, then we served the coffee and cake.